Hi, Doc Cake here. Hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about overall strategic planning and looking at market attractiveness. Those two topics relate to uh, some of the assignments you have ongoing right now that are due soon in terms of your marketing proposal and selecting products and markets that you think have good opportunities in terms of growth and sales and profitability. So if you look at the Io Corbucci book, I think I'm pronouncing that pretty closely. Sorry if I'm botching it up for you Italians out there, but Io Corbucci, we're talking about chapter 16, the beginning of 17, where we're talking about the 5 C's, and we're going to get into a little bit of chapter 4, which is targeting and market attractiveness. But I thought it was good to step back before you get into this proposal. Just jumping into things, you need to step back and think strategically in terms of what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? Who are we? And what strengths and weaknesses do we have? So I'm going to go through a little bit of that and then give you some techniques to use to think about those opportunities. I'm sure most of you have done a SWOT analysis, but if you think you're going back, big picture, 90,000 feet, what is the company's mission to begin with? What business are we in? What are we trying to achieve overall? And some companies include specific market share objectives and possibly the good for society or corporate responsibility, some ethical discussion in their mission. But most importantly with that is who are we and what business are we in? That can guide what you do going forward. And if you deem to change that, you need to change your mission. Thereafter, setting goals are very important. And this is corporate stuff, but it definitely relates to marketing. So these goals vary, contingent on the company. I've seen many different types of goals, but mostly they relate to sales, market share, profitability, bottom line profit, gross profit. We'll talk about that stuff later when we get to pricing, as well as possibly return on equity, return on assets, return on investment, or any other way that companies look at things. It took me a while to figure out what banks did in terms of goals because I had not been in banking, but they have a different way of looking at things in terms of gathering assets, meeting certain goals of the Fed, and certainly still bottom line profitability, but to get there is a lot different. So we set our mission, we set our goals, and then I'm talking more about planning here. And then I'm sure some of you have heard this, we do a SWOT analysis. Ooh, that's exciting. But really it's a situation analysis, a detailed situation analysis. But the SWOT analysis is a very important thing to do. Even in marketing too, especially strategic marketing. And I think you all know what SWOT means. If not, let me review. The S is strengths. The W is weaknesses. The O is opportunities. And the T is threats. Sometimes things can be opportunities as well as threats, depending on what you do with them. But let's focus on strengths first. Strengths or capabilities. Capabilities. Do you have certain capabilities in terms of your different functional areas, in marketing, in finance, in sales, distribution channel strength, getting the product to market, your retailers, your manufacturing, what all are your strengths and what are you capable of doing? Well, that's spending a whole lot more money, because what you want to do first is, what are my opportunities? Do I want to go in this particular market or not? Do I need to come up with new products to go into another market, or to stay in the current market and come out with a new type of product in the market I'm in? Do I go into And are those markets adjacent or the same markets you're in now? Or are they completely different markets and products you've never been in? And that's a lot of what I've studied in the past with my innovation research. Things that are radical, things that are outside your current strengths and capabilities. But if they're large enough, and if they're in a growing market, and sometimes it's very fuzzy, you don't know that, how is it feasible as well as affordable? And does it make sense, is what I'm trying to say. Does it make sense to strengthen up your resources and capabilities to take advantage of that particular opportunity? So those are all things you need to be thinking about when you're doing the SWOT analysis. Opportunities can come from different regulations that are coming down the pike, trends in the marketplace, economic things. Now think about those things that threaten the company. There's a whole list of them. But you want to look at those. You want to look at those very closely. You want to analyze how big they are. And that's really part of market attractiveness, as it talks about in chapter 4. Is it your current market? Is that market growing a lot or not? How large is that market? And that's a key one. How large is that market? If you're a small company, let's say you're only $5 million. Pick a number. If you find an opportunity that's potentially $500,000 in year one, that is not bad. But if you're a $10 billion company, let's say $7.5 billion company, like Hershey Chocolate is one of my favorite companies because I worked there and I'm stock there. They continue to grow. But if you're a $7.5 billion company, 500,000, who cares? Who cares? Give me 500 million and I might look at it. It's more attractive. Or if it's only a $300 million potential company. But in a growing market, yeah. They just bought, who did they just buy? Well, the Skinny Pop is part of a bigger company, but you may be familiar with that brand. It's part of their changing mission, which is to be, a healthy snack food company versus what it was when I was there, a chocolate company. Actually, they had pasta at that time too. So a little bit, I don't know what their mission was. So that's very important to look at those opportunities like that. And the other thing you need to be thinking about that hasn't already been established, or if you're helping a company, is what kind of company do I want to be? What are my overall strategic ways of doing business? And Porter talks about this in chapter 17. Porter, famous guy in management. Do I take a price leadership position? Do I find a benefit? That's really important, and differentiate myself versus the competition. And/or, I say and/or, do I focus, I'll write the word niche down too. Do I focus on a particular market or niche in the marketplace? And this is contingent on how big you are, what resources you have, what capabilities you have, and how big you are to begin with, which correlates to those things too. So we have price, what I'll call differentiation, right? Differentiating yourself from the competition based on benefits, or we have focus. But you can focus in a niche and definitely differentiate yourself at the same time. And then it's a question of, how do I differentiate myself? What market do I go into? I go into a market that's very crowded with other competition and find a niche, some underserved market in terms of demographics or the benefits that are being provided? Possibly. Or do I go into a completely new one and get radical? Christensen talked about disrupting the market. Disrupting meaning going to a different space in the market or industry that no one else is going after based on some benefit and capturing that market. This is war. This is like talking warfare, right? For you military, we have a few military people out there. To defeat a big army, what do you do? Or even to raise havoc, what do you do? Guerrilla warfare or flanking maneuvers. If you're a big army and you're trying to defend your territory, what do? You squash the enemy before they get going with your strengths. Or if you see a part of your territory being invaded, excuse me, what do? You send troops there or some force or some strength to defend that part of your territory. Now the question is, at what point in time do you do that? But it has a lot, management strategies came out of warfare from way back. So a lot of the same principles are true. Hold on a second. I have to take a drink of water. So don't forget about Porter and those three things I just talked about. The other piece of research that is similar to that was done by Tracy and Wersami, I think is how you say his name. They came up with three things, ways you can differentiate yourself as a company: having operational excellence and being able to pass that on to people, to your clients, to your supply chain, your distributors and your retailers, and using and kind of parlaying that into customer service as a way to differentiate yourself. They also talked about product leadership. When you think of Apple and what they did for a long time, they don't have it anymore. They were definitely leading the edge, leading the category in technology and products that were being offered. I don't think they're there anymore. And then in today's world, being intimate with your customers, talking to them a lot, engaging with them, doing a lot of things to have them engage with you, having a very good dialogue on an ongoing basis with customers is something they talked about too. So those are different ways you can kind of say how you're different ways you can position your company or your brand. You think about price leadership. Who's the most known company for price leadership? So how many said Walmart? Everybody say Walmart? Everything they do, almost everything they do, is about getting the price down in terms of product acquisition costs from all the manufacturers that supply them with product, everything they do. So most other companies, I may have mentioned this before, most other companies take periodic deep discounts, and then they have regular price other times. Walmart just wants a low price, EDL every day. And everything else they do is to try to set up their systems, their inventory, their labor, everything else to keep costs down so they can maximize profitability while at the same time increasing sales with consumers, because they know if they come to Walmart, they're going to get probably a really good price every day. Not necessarily the lowest price on that day, because you could go to a supermarket and they may have a deep discounted price on something else. And on that particular day or week or 2 weeks, you might find a product that's lower in price at another store versus Walmart. But overall, they're known, as you know, for cost leadership. Every day, lowest you can get. So let's talk about the 5 C's a little bit, which is in the beginning of chapter 17. And this is really part of the situation analysis and part of marketing strategy development, overall marketing strategy. When we start talking the 4 P's, which some of you may be familiar with at this point or not: pricing, product, promotion, and place, meaning where we distribute our products, I call them tactics. But we first need an overall strategy as to what we want to do. And those strategies, those marketing strategies, should be consistent with the corporate strategies or the corporate goals. should I say. So the 5 C's, part of the situation analysis. Who are we as a company? I kind of talked about that already. Who are we? What are our strengths? What can we do? But second is, who is our customer? Define them. Who are they? What do they buy? How often do they buy? Which ones are most profitable? Where do they live? You name it, anything we can learn about them. We should try to find out what's going on. Not only our customers, but our former customers. You know, we have some attrition. People leave us, both distributors and retailers, I think manufacturing, whatever, distributors, retailers, or the end user consumer, as I call them. Why have we lost them? Who were they? Who were they? You know, in terms of demographics and everything else, and attitudes and behavior. And then, who are our potential customers? And that'll be contingent on what kind of markets we want to go after, or some uninvaded space that no one has addressed yet in terms of benefits or types of people to go after. So far we have company and customers, 2 C's. Next is, what context are we playing in right now? What's going on in the environment? And when I say environment, I mean economics, legal things, regulation things, research and development, technology, social trends. You know, what context are we trying to do this plan? And are we positioning ourselves to take advantage of these different contexts, or are they affecting us adversely? We got to figure that out. Because our goal is profitability if we're a public company. So that's our 3rd C. Our 4th C, who are our collaborators? People who supply us with things before we make them, or supply us with all types of services if we're a service company, people that help us with software design, whatever it might be. Who are our distributors? What kind of relationships do we have with them? Our sales brokers, people that don't take on the product but do sell our product, and all the different retailers that are out there. What kind of collaboration relationship do we have with those people? And having groups of people that we talk to understand what their wants and needs are is very important. I was part of the distributor council group at a former position. Those people are very, very powerful. Granted, you don't totally use distributors to distribute your product. You maybe go direct to retailers to do it, but many times you do use distributors, and they are very powerful. If you don't have good relationships with them, you won't do very well. Same with retailers. If you don't have good relationships with them, you don't do very well. So you have to listen. You have to let them win. But at the same time, you need to win too. So you both have to win. You both, have similar goals, sales and profitability. But you have to find a way to differentiate yourself from competition and show empathy to all of these people. So that's the 4th C. The 5th C is, who's my competition? Who's my direct competition? Who's my indirect competition? I always use the example of like Pepsi. Direct competition, other soft drinks, right? Okay. Who's my indirect competition? Other beverages, other refreshments. What's some other competition? Think about the benefits of different soft drinks or drinks. Refreshment, caffeine, thirst quenching, energy. When you start thinking that way, what other things provide those benefits? That's also your competition. And when you're thinking about that, hey, maybe I should get into one of these markets because I kind of know what the benefits are and the types of people who might use these products. I may already have some of these consumers as customers, and I could target them with these new products. It's something to think about. So related to that, I'm glad I brought that up. So those are the 5 C's. I'll put them up so you have them. The company, your customers, in what context are you marketing? Who are your collaborators? And who's the competition? And when I say competition, I want to add, how big are they? What's their standing in the marketplace? What's their market share? Where are they? Where do they have distribution? What types of products do they have? What are their benefits? And how do they position their brand? Very important. How do they position their brand or their product? In other words, what's the benefit to the customer, for their customers, that motivates those customers to buy their product? You also have to know that about yourself, too. What motivates people to buy you? Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, right? Motivate people to buy you and to continue to buy you and have a relationship with you. I think I talked about that in the discussion. Make people happy. Get them to buy you, make people happy. I'm missing one. I know engagement was the last thing. Oh, and make people loyal. Yeah, continue to buy you. So if you saw those 3 words, that's super important. Studies have shown if people are satisfied, of course, if they're loyal, and thirdly, if they engage with you on an ongoing basis, that's going to increase sales and profitability. You just got to find the right people to talk to first. And this next thing that we talk about is something that can help you with that. And it's called, hold on, be right back. Dun-dun, I'm back. It's called the product matrix, the product market growth matrix. It's on page, you can read that upside down or in the mirror. It's on page 212 of your textbook. Now, as marketers, we don't sit there and say, well, what is the product growth matrix telling us about this situation? And let me do this matrix. I don't think many people do that, but I often think this way in terms of how I should be going about thinking how we can grow the business, okay? It talks about, what are my current products? How can I expand my markets with those current products? That's kind of the low-hanging fruit. I many times show an apple tree in my other classes. The apples at the bottom of the tree are very easy to get to, right? There they are, low-hanging fruit. But how about if I come out with new products for my current markets? That's pretty low-hanging too, because people already know us, right? We come out with new products. We say that particularly if we name it the same thing. They go, oh, yeah, I know that brand. I know the piece of cake brand. He served me very well so far, that company has. I'll buy them again. And you give them some incentive to buy you. So still low-hanging fruit. But what if we go into totally new markets, right? Totally new markets with our current products. Let me back up a second. The first quadrant was current products with current customers, but getting current customers to buy a lot more of your current products. And maybe different types of customers. Next, current products with totally new markets. They may know you, they may not know you. So you have to find where the most potential is. Find people who haven't bought you, segments of people who haven't bought, big blocks of people who haven't bought you yet, and find out what they're looking for. Maybe you need to change the product a little bit for them, not major change, just a little what we call a product extension, little different features or different packaging, whatever it might be. We go after those totally new markets. And it can be new customer markets, right? Or it could be new geography. So these first 3 ways are still pretty low-hanging fruit. I would say the last one is kind of in the mid-tree. You may need a small ladder for that. But as we progress through the ones I just talked about, every time you progress to the different one, most likely you're going to be spending more money. Easy to get to your current customers, their current distribution system and salespeople, and current messaging. If you have a new product to go to current customers, you're going to be spending a lot of money on that new product. And if you go to completely new markets, you need to understand those markets. And you may need different distributors, different retailers, different distribution systems entirely to reach those markets. But what if you come out with new products for totally new markets? Very risky. Can be very risky. Just like the apples at the top of the tree. I usually use the analogy of these, how many apple trees do I have? These 4 apple trees that I used to have at my house. And this one tree was really tall, but at the top were these huge apples. Because at the top you get the most sun, most light, and the most wind or whatever. So at the appropriate time, when they were ripe, I would find ways to get up there. But I didn't have a ladder that could get me up there so I could be at the top of the ladder and reach the apples. So I risked my life climbing on branches or shaking the tree and trying to catch the apples as they fell. But boy, what a reward it was. So very high, I could have fallen and killed myself. Apparently I didn't. So, but what a reward it was. Same thing with the new product. Very risky, but very rewarding if it's successful. But it could be a completely new market, and it may have a totally different name from what you already have. The reason I'm bringing this up is this is a way to look at what markets you want to go into, from low-hanging fruit, low risk, to the apples at the top of the tree, very high risk. And this is called the product market growth matrix on page 212. Good way to think. Don't necessarily always put this matrix together, but you got to think about the first couple. You got to, as a strategist, as a way to grow the business. And people ask you, how are we going to grow the business next year? We need a 15% growth. And if somebody wants to get a 15% growth, but the market's stagnant, you're going to have to take away market share from somebody else, right? The market's not growing. This is the market, and you've got a 10% share. If you want to get to 12 or 13 or whatever, you're going to have to take 2 or 3 points from somebody else. Contrast that to a growing market that's growing 15%, 20%, right? More of a crowded market with competition. You could come in and grab a big piece of that pie, big piece of that market, and grow your business. But the question is, like I said at the beginning, question is resources. Do I have the money to do it? Do I have the capabilities to do it? So when you're thinking about planning beyond your current business, which is how a lot of people think, particularly in marketing, you have to think outside the box, a little bit more than just the current market. How can we get that growth? And that's the only way you're going to grow, is to have this type of innovation or growth. So that ends my discussion for today. Please write with any questions. I will post something up for the seminar in terms of you remembering what I talked about, or you seeing what I talked about, just a couple simple questions. And we'll go from there. Otherwise, keep communicating. I'll keep communicating. And I hope to talk to you soon again. Thank you very much. See you again from